'Tis the season to be jolly because day 20 of 25 Days of Christmas Comics starts right now. And I'm your host, the Dude Without Fear. I'm going to be really honest with you. I had a very difficult time in selecting which Spider-Man story I was going to use for today's episode. And that's because there were a lot of really good Spider-Man stories to select from. The two that I've featured already in the series were pretty no-brainers to me. I mainly used the Christmas in Dallas comic because it's just a unique book, and just its existence intrigued me. And Kingpin as Santa Claus, incredible. I used the second one, with the Marvel team up book with the Watcher, because that story was just fantastic. And I'm using this one tonight because the story that features Spider-Man is, in my opinion, a much more important tale to be told than the other comics that I was debating on using. So let's get into today's Christmas comic book, which is the Spider-Man Holiday Special 1995. The story is called A Matter of Faith. A couple was being robbed in an alleyway, and luckily, Spider-Man, who I'm pretty sure has been Riley in this comic. It could be Peter Parker, but I'm pretty sure it's Ben Riley because he's wearing Ben Riley's Spider-Man costume, which is my favorite Spider-Man costume because look at this thing. It is just super rad. I mean, that costume is fresh to death, people. So I am pretty sure it's Ben, but some of the dialogue makes me question that, and I can't really find any information on it. So it's just Spider-Man, all right? I know that for certain. So Spider-Man is beating up these jerkholes that was robbing this couple in this alley. And by the way, it's Christmas Eve, in case you were wondering when this story took place. And Spider-Man says, I hope I'm not interrupting a family reunion here, but you don't look like this nice couple's grandsons. And one of them pulls a gun on him. One of them pulls a gun on him, and he's like, "Back off, jerk. I ain't afraid of being the guy who killed Spider-Man." And Spider-Man goes, "A gun," and thwips some webbing at him and webs up his hand and his gun. He's like, "I've never faced down a gun before." And then he just punches this dude right in the kisser. And he webs up these dudes to form a beautiful little Christmas tree in this alleyway. And he helps the couple pick up their packages. And they thank him for saving their lives and wish him happy holidays to him and his loved ones. And as they're walking off in each other's embrace, thankful that they are both alive and well, Spider-Man thinks to himself, loved ones. That's an interesting concept. After 5 years away from New York, I have no loved ones here anymore. Aunt May's gone, and with me having a new civilian identity, I can't even touch base with the few friends I had when I was Peter Parker. So your lonely neighborhood Spider-Man is left with nothing to do but web sling around town alone on what should be one of the most joyous nights of the year. But I'm not bitter. And then he notices somebody is on this bridge that he is standing under. And he says, there is someone up there, a woman. But what she. And then she falls off this bridge. And he's like, oh my God. And he's like, no time to wallow in self pity. Got to do that superhero thing. And he rushes to catch her. He's thinking, Lord, she's falling so fast. This is going to be so close. And he catches her. He's like, I've got you, miss. After some fancy arachnid acrobatics, we'll be back on solid ground in no time. And he sits her down, and she's sobbing. And he's like, are you okay? It's a good thing I happen to be nearby. I should get you to a hospital. And she says, you jerk. I didn't want to be saved. Spider-Man's kind of taken aback. And he's like, I beg your pardon? She goes, I didn't fall off the bridge. I jumped. Spider-Man asks, why? She said, because I have no reason to live. I have nothing. I am nothing. No friends, no family, no job, no money. And today was the kicker. Today I found out I'm being evicted from my little rat hole apartment. Great way to start the holidays, huh? And she keeps crying. She says, that's when it hit me. I don't matter. My life doesn't make a difference. I could fall off the face of the earth and no one would care. Spider-Man thinks, man, that sounds familiar. I felt exactly the same way 5 years ago when I first thought I was a clone. So I guess this is Peter Parker, which is really weird because there's another story in this comic where he's Ben Reilly. So I guess this is Peter Parker. So he puts his hand on her shoulder and he says, believe it or not, I know how you feel. I understand. What's your name? She says, Jenny Sheridan. And he shoots a web. He says, listen, Jenny, let's say we get out of here, okay? I've got this real hang up about girls on bridges. And so she holds on tight to him and they take off swinging through the city. And she's telling him her story. She says, so I came to New York to become a writer, as if this town really needs yet another aspiring writer. Spider-Man says, couldn't find any work, huh? She says, nothing. I watched my life savings dwindle down into the negative figures. Losing my apartment was the last straw. I couldn't bear the thought of living on the streets anonymous, having no place to go, ignored and avoided by everyone, no one caring whether I lived or died. And he says, that's where you're wrong, Jenny. No matter what you think, there are people who care. I care. And hey, looks like a riot's going on at the Manhattan Mall. There's all these people, and he doesn't know what's going on. He just sees chaos and flames. He says, I know last minute Christmas shoppers can get pretty brutal, but this is ridiculous. I'm going in to check this out. You stay here where it's safe. She asks, will you be all right? He says, probably not, but that's never stopped me before. And then at the heart of this chaos is the Scorcher. And he says, telling everybody to drop their wallets and purses, and wishes everybody a Merry Christmas and thanks them for shopping at the Manhattan Mall. And so Spider-Man is trying to get through the chaos, the people trying to get away and everything. And he sees that it's the Scorcher, and he remembers back to the first time that he ever fought the Scorcher. And which is referenced as Untold Tales of Spider-Man issue 1, which is one of my favorite Spider-Man series. So Spider-Man says, "I left my wallet in my other suit, Scorchy. How's about I just give you a hug instead?" And he's like, "What, Spider-Man?" And so they fight, and Spider-Man's trying to figure out who he's working for, if it's the Grinch or not. And Scorcher says, "I don't answer to anyone these days, Bugman. I only work for myself now. No bosses, no henchmen." And Spider-Man says, "I get it, loser, but now, when you fell miserably, you'll only have yourself to blame." And Spider-Man tries to web him up, and he says, "I can burn through your stupid webbing as if it were cotton. You see, I'm a lot better than last time, jerk." Spider-Man's spider sense is going off. He says, "When I called you loser, I meant it only in the most respectful way." And Scorcher shoots some fire at him, and Spider-Man thinks, "The force of these fire blasts hurling me back right through the front window." And Spider-Man is now back outside, and he lands right in front of Jenny, and this homeless guy begging for change in the crowd. And Jenny says, "What's happening?" And Spider-Man says, "Old playmate of mine didn't like what he got for Christmas. I think he wanted a pony." And so Scorcher now comes outside, and he's looking for Spider-Man. And they continue their fight, and Spider-Man jumps up to looks like a billboard that's hanging off the side of the building, and Scorcher shoots at the billboard to knock Spider-Man off, and it knocks the billboard off as well. And so as the billboard is falling, Spider-Man looks down, and he sees that it's falling right towards the homeless man begging for change. And he's like, "Oh man." And Jenny says, "Mister, look out. You're going to be crushed, mister." She says, "Oh God, he can't hear me." And so she runs and tackles this homeless dude. And right as this billboard crashes to the ground, and Spider-Man yells, "Jenny, no!" And he webs up his hands, and he's going for the Scorcher. And he says, "Scorcher, this ends now." And Scorcher says, "Idiot, webbing up your hands can't protect you from my flame-throwing gauntlets." And Spider-Man grabs Scorcher's wrists and says, "Right now, I don't care." And he just crushes those gauntlets. And whatever he did, crushing those, whatever that exposed, really muffs up Spider-Man's hands and the Scorcher as well. Scorcher appears to be in a lot of pain, and police sirens can be heard, so the police are showing up. And Spider-Man thinks to himself, "Ouch, gonna have French fried fingers for a while, but can't think about that now. Gotta find." Then he hears Spider-Man. He turns around and he sees Jenny, and he is so excited to see her. He says, "You're all right, thank God. I saw what you did. You were incredible, kiddo. Still think you don't make a difference?" She says, "But all I did was..." Spider-Man says, "A human being is alive, Jenny, because of you. That matters. You matter." And they hug, and she says, maybe I can make a difference after all." He says, "You better believe it, kiddo." And she says, "I'll take this man to a homeless shelter. And I think I'll even volunteer there tonight." Spider-Man says, "This is one of their busiest nights. I'm sure they could use all the help they can get. Jenny, are you going to be okay?" And she goes, "Well, my situation hasn't changed, but I think I have. I know now. I want to make my life count for something." Spider-Man says, "You will. You already have." It says, "As for me, there are plenty of other creeps out there with the same idea as Scorcher. So Santa won't be the only good guy in a funny outfit who'll be working tonight." Jenny says, "Merry Christmas, Spider-Man." She says, "Merry Christmas to you, Jenny." And he thinks to himself, "And to all a good night," as he swings off. And so I chose to use this story because the situation that Jenny was in, a lot of people find themselves in, especially at this time of the year. In reading this, I can't help but think in this year of this COVID-19 that we've dealt with for the majority of the year, and for most people staying home most of the time, and that's not good for someone's mental health. And so, suicide this year has been, there's been like an increase in the amount of suicide that's happened this year. And so you've got an already really hard year, and then you got a holiday that's really hard on people who think like Jenny did. And so I've already touched on it in an earlier episode, but everybody matters. Even if you don't feel like you matter, you do matter. Your actions cause a ripple effect that affect other people, kind of like what we talked about in yesterday's episode. And if you're suddenly not in the picture anymore and you're not creating those ripples, then you're not impacting other people like you're supposed to be doing. I mean, I believe that you're here for a reason. I believe that you were created for a specific purpose and a specific reason. I don't think that we're all just here by chance. And I believe that if you're here for a purpose. And until that purpose is fulfilled, then you're still going to be kicking it with us. So you don't need to not kick it with us, because you do matter. How you affect other people's lives matters. And sometimes it can just be this tiniest thing, just giving somebody a smile because you're faking it. You don't want people to know how tore up you are inside, but you just flash a smile because you think that's what's expected of you. And that person that you smiled at, maybe they just needed somebody to smile at them, and it changes their whole day, which causes them to do something else, and so on and so forth, right? It's that ripple effect. So just because you may think that you don't matter doesn't mean that you do not. You are here for a purpose, and even though you may think that people don't care about you, I guarantee you that if people knew how you were actually feeling, that you would see more people caring than you could have imagined. And with Jenny, what helped her is she even says her situation didn't change. So the things that caused her to get to that point where she was willing to take her own life, they were still there. But the thing that changed was her perspective and her outlook and how she viewed herself. And once she saw that she could make a difference, that she did make a difference, that she mattered, then that's all that she needed. She can deal with the other stuff. Human beings are very strong. We can put up with a lot of stuff, man. Like, Taco Bell just took away the Mexican pizza, dude. And I'm still around. And it's not easy, okay? But human beings are resilient. they can withstand a lot. And you may not feel like you can, but you can. So just know, if you've been struggling with any of that stuff, that you are important, you do matter, and people do care about you. I care about you, and I don't even know you. So you matter. You are important. Our second story is titled The Venom Clause. And it's 3 days before Christmas in Manhattan. And Venom comes across a Santa Claus laying in an alley, trying to get up off of the snow-covered ground. And Venom says, "Don't try to get up." And he looks back and he says, "What are you? Stay away." He says, "We are Venom. We didn't mean to frighten you." And he changes to Eddie Brock. He says, "My other has the ability to alter our appearance. Is this better? You can call me Eddie." He says, "We heard your moans and came to see if you needed help." Santa says, "Now I don't need your help. I needed it about 10 minutes ago when I was being stomped on and robbed by those punks." And Eddie asks, "Which punks? Who would dare assault a sidewalk Santa?" This guy's like, "Where are you from? Mars? This is New York City, dude. Even the police get mugged. There's been a rash of attacks in this area. I'm not the first victim, and I won't be the last." "Well, thanks for the concern, but I gotta go." Eddie says, "Yeah, you're right. These attacks upon innocent volunteers cannot be allowed to continue." So Eddie disguises himself as Santa Claus using the symbiote. He's standing on a street corner doing the whole Santa Claus on the street corner thing. And then he hears these cries for help. He said that scream came from around the corner. And he rounds the corner and he sees all this gang trying to rob this grandma. It's literally 4 dudes against an old lady and an old man. And Eddie yells, "Let them go now," and charges at him. And so they just see a Santa Claus charging at him. And this one guy with a crowbar says, "Get a load of this." "Okay, Santa Claus, don't go losing your head," and whacks him with the crowbar. And Eddie's on the ground and they're laughing. And one of them says, "You nailed him good, Richie. You gonna finish him off?" And they try to take off his Santa hat and it won't come off. They're like, "Yeah, but I want his hat as a souvenir. It won't come off though." And then Eddie smiles and said, "That's because it's a part of us." And then all of a sudden he goes from laying on the ground to standing upright, and they're freaked out by how quickly he did that. And then he changes into Venom, and they're like, "He ain't no sidewalk Santa." He says, "That's right, we are Venom, and you are dead. All of you will pay for your cowardly attacks on the innocents in this neighborhood." They try to run, and Venom webs them up and is pulling them back towards himself. And he says, "You're not so tough now, are you?" And one of them standing behind him holding a gun says, "Let him go or you're dead." Venom's like, "Go ahead, make my day." This dude just unloads his magazine at him. And Venom's like, "Oh, you shot me? You actually shot me." And the dude's like freaked out. He's like, you left me no choice." And Venom just bursts out laughing at this guy. He says, "What a waste of good lead, but I think I can put it to use." And the symbiote spits the lead back out and shoots the gun out of the dude's hand. And Venom grabs him by the throat and lifts him up off the ground. And the guy's like, "What are you going to do to me?" He's like, "Well, kill you, of course, but because it is the Christmas season, we won't prolong your suffering." And then a hand touches Venom's shoulder and a voice says, "Please, let him be." And Venom's like, "What?" And he turns around and it's the old lady that was getting mugged. And she said, and Venom says, after what this animal did to you and your husband, you would beg for mercy on his behalf? And the old lady says, oh, don't mistake me for a fool. I know he's dangerous, but he belongs in jail, not dead. Please let the police deal with him and his friends. After all, it is Christmas. So Venom, still holding this guy up by the throat, says, we don't know. We were really looking forward to twisting his head off and using it as a Christmas tree ornament. And the old lady says, please, Mr. Venom, I think he's learned his lesson. And Venom smiles and says, I guess you're right. Since it's Christmas, I'll let him live. You are a very sweet woman. And he gives her a little kiss on the cheek. Then he gets in this dude's face and he says, you, on the other hand, are filth, pure and simple. So I'll leave you with this warning. You and your punk friends better cease and desist your criminal activities. Otherwise, I'll be back. So Venom webs these thugs to these trees. I guess they're on a Christmas tree lot. And as he's swinging off, he says, he's wearing a Santa hat. He says, remember, we know who's naughty, and we'll put them on ice. So you better watch out. You better not cry. You better not shout. We're telling you why. Venom Claus is coming to town. And our story is over. And I wanted to use that story because it's a Venom Christmas story, which in itself is pretty unique. But that old lady asking Venom to spare the lives of these douchebags, that's a very touching moment, because there's no telling what they were going to do to her and her husband. They could have killed them. They could have beat them up. They could have just robbed them and sent them on their way and ruined their night. But, there's no telling what they could have done. They meant to do them harm. And instead of letting Venom return the favor, she asked that he let them live and not take their lives, but just let the police deal with them. Sometimes the best thing that you can do for somebody is show them mercy. A lot of people make a lot of mistakes, and it affects people's lives in horrific ways. And how you respond to them can make or break a person. It can make all the difference in the world. We need more mercy in our society right now. We're living in this cancel culture age where, if you disagree with somebody, or you share an opinion that someone doesn't like, they just think that you just need to be cut off, and that's that. If God forbid you tweeted something 10 years ago when you were 18 years old, oh my gosh, your life could be over. You could get fired from your job because of something you said on the internet as an idiot teenager. That's crazy. When given the opportunity to be merciful to someone that doesn't deserve it, choose mercy, because that'll come back around. If you're merciful to others, then you may reap that mercy when you need it. So that's all I have for tonight. I hope that you got something out of tonight's Christmas comic. I hope these stories impacted you in some way. If they did, leave me a comment. Let me know what you thought. And I hope you'll join me tomorrow for day 21 of 25 Days of Christmas Comics. May your day be merry and bright. And I'll see you tomorrow night.